This isn't a boat, it's a missile, an all aluminium missile powered by three 400 horsepower 5.7 litre Mercury V10s for a top speed of 45 knots. This is the XO EXPLR, the €1 million flagship of the XO range, and this is the usually reserved, sensible Finns letting their hair down a little bit. This is the most expensive, most powerful, most bonkers boat ever to wear the XO moniker. And this video, I'm going to see what it's like to drive this 1200 horsepower assault weapon and try and work out what it's for, apart from going very quickly and looking very cool. I mean, it's gold, for God's sake. What a machine. Let's get into it. I'm Jack Haines, you're watching YachtBuyer. The XO EXPLR has a length overall of 43 feet 7 inches and a beam of 12 foot 1 inch. The draft is just 3 feet 5 inches. There's a benefit of outboards for you, and they're fed by an 1800 litre fuel tank, which will be empty quite quickly if you travel along at the near 50 knot top speed. The base price is €745,000. The prices tested of the one you see here is just over €1.2 million, excluding VAT. And yes, some of the options are eye-wateringly expensive. The paint alone is 25 grand. The 44 is by some distance the largest boat in the XO range, sitting at the top of the Explorer line, and it has some tasty competition, including the Wellcraft 44, Axopar 45 cross cabin, and the performance version of that boat, the Brabus Shadow 1200 cross cabin. And if you want to see how the XO compares to these boats, head to yachtbuyer.com and use our industry leading head-to-head tool to compare them side by side. Right, on with the review. Right, with 1200 horsepower sitting back there, there's only one way to start this test, isn't there? There we go. The weird thing is we are moving very quickly, we're up to 20 knots already, but you've got no real perception of that speed because A, those V10s are really quiet even though there's three of them, and B, we're in a wheelhouse, so it's, you know, there's no sensation of the speed, you're not being buffeted by the conditions, but we are already doing 40 knots. I mean, what was that? 8-9 seconds, something like that? And now we are already at the cruising speed. This thing is designed for a sort of 32 to 40 knot cruising speed. We were going along for the drone earlier on at 25 knots and you could feel it was really not liking it. It wants to be cruising more quickly than that. And this speed here, 35 knots, you can just tell that it's in the sweet spot. I can see the wake is just washing off just, you know, behind me here, coming off the hull cleanly. It's sitting really nicely and it's covering ground beautifully. I mean, it is calm, we're in the archipelago here, it's pretty well protected, but this just feels like where you want to be on this boat. And yeah, the headline is 45 knot top speed, but really it's being able to cruise at these higher speeds that is what's so important, and it's what this boat is designed for. Here in the archipelago, covering ground, whatever time of year, you can go along at a decent lick and do it comfortably. You can talk to the people inside this wheelhouse, you're not being pounded by the wind. If it's raining, you're well protected, but you can open everything up if you want to on a warmer day. But it just eats these miles so effortlessly. Now, you can have it with a pair of 600 horsepower V12s, and performance is going to be pretty similar, to be honest. You can also have it with two 400 horsepower V10s. That's a sub 40 knot boat. It's an option, but for me, this feels like a really good pairing, as with the 600 V12s. If anything, they're going to be probably a little bit smoother. But it's a really lovely, fast cruising experience. But the other thing you have, you've got three engines, is a really good amount of grip. And it just responds so nicely to these inputs. I mean, XO, you expect good handling. I've tested many of the smaller boats, and you expect this sort of knife edge reaction. And you wonder, can that translate to something that's a bit bigger, you know, in the region of 45 feet? Well, I can tell you it absolutely does. And if anything, it feels a bit more rewarding because it feels a bit naughtier. You know, something this big just doesn't necessarily feel like it should be able to do this quite so comfortably, but it's lovely. And I tell you what, it feels a bit sort of silly doing this type of maneuver just in open water like this. But in this sort of environment, you are slicing past the islands, you're following quite narrow channels, and you do have to pull some hard turns and follow your track very, very keenly. And having this sort of agility is just wonderful. It's a proper driving experience. And you There's something unique about boating in this area. You are not just setting a straight line and sitting still at 35 knots where you go out to an anchorage. You have to drive the boat, you have to think about it, and that informs the way Finnish boats in general are produced, but especially boats like this. And it comes down not only to sort of the performance of the engines, but the whole driving experience. You can see how I'm standing here. This is a seat and a leaning post. This entire thing shifts fore and aft, but this is a really good heavy weather position. I'm braced, I've got a great view. The throttle is a long way out, so I can rest my hand on it and use it in single lever mode and have really good support there if you are going through bigger sea. Two enormous Garmin screens here, one with the chart zoomed out, and often you have the chart zoomed in as well, so that you can, you really need to be very aware of where you are in these surroundings, because there's so many islands, so many rocks, so many potential obstructions. And this boat's running Seakeeper Ride, which is, it's a trim system just like Humphrey, just like Zipwake. It's Seakeeper's version. It's actually the first time I've tested the boat with it, and though again it's not really being tested today because it's been pretty calm thus far, it certainly does a very good job of keeping the boat lovely and level, helping it get onto the plane. I mean, it comes out the hole really nicely because it's got so much power, but between the auto trim on the engines and the Seakeeper Ride, all you really have to think about is steering and what speed you want to go. And now we are just cruising at 37 knots, and I just can't resist a bit more of these because the grip is just so rewarding. Oh, I hate using this worn old cliche and that feeling of being on rails. It's like a Scale Electric. There you go, there's a different cliche for you. It just feels like it is stuck in a groove in the water and you will not shift it. I just wish it was a little bit lumpier. However, we are in relatively good space here, so let's try and cross our own wash and see what happens. Really get some... That is sensational. And I can see here on the screen that actually the Seakeeper Ride system is helping this process and keeping this turn nice and sharp and stable. Here comes our wash. This is probably going to be a bit of a non-event. Yeah, it's going to take more than that to unsettle this boat. Go back the other way. Honestly, it feels like the boat shrinks around you. And you can just keep on winding in the lock. Remarkable, that is remarkable. A little bit of chop here, straight over it, all aluminium hull. Knife-like through the water. It's lovely. We're now cruising at 40 knots like it's nothing, topping out at 44, so you can do that. In terms of important stuff like fuel consumption, well, if we're taking that 35 knot cruising speed, you're looking at about 260 litres an hour across all three engines. And I would imagine you're probably getting a fast cruising range of 250 nautical miles, 200 nautical miles, something like that, depending on conditions. So it's like short, fast passage making. Absolutely laser guided on that function. What sadly we can't test, obviously, is how this thing would power through bigger troughs, bigger swells. You're dealing with short chop in this type of environment. But certainly as a fast cruising boat, it's just effortless. And it looks bloody good, doesn't it? But yeah, at speed, it's an absolute riot. If you like what you're watching, why not subscribe to YachtBuyer YouTube channel? Give us a like, hit subscribe and hit that bell icon. You'll be notified every time we upload a new video. Okay, slow speed stuff. We've got the perfect pontoon for the job here. And now, with the Mercury joystick, as well as combining all three engines, it also brings the bow thruster into play. So, depending on the conditions and the manoeuvre you're doing, you can probably hear that's the proportional bow thruster now wearing up. I'm just coming alongside slowly. And then when I want to move sideways, if it deems it can do it with just the engines, it will, or it'll bring the bow thruster in. So I'm just going to come to a stop, and then we push sideways. Yeah, it's brought the bow thruster in quite early there, but you get a really good positive shove sideways. And having three engines back in the day would have been, you'd have been juggling two throttles, the bow thruster. It is all condensed down into this single joystick, and we're just drifting in really gently. It's controlled. As I said when we were driving fast, it's very kind conditions today. But when I talk about the driving position, this is what I mean. The joystick's here, so I can essentially be on deck, spotting how close I am, making fine adjustments, just going to straighten us up a bit. We're coming in really gently, and I can see everything right down to the aft platform, obviously right forward. I can see how close we're getting. So if I'm running this boat on my own, I could have used Skyhook to hang all the fenders out, put the lines on, and the crucial key ingredient, I talk about it all the time, I know it's really boring, but you'll see here, this is why it's so important. Having this, it's not just this bit, it's this bit that's so important, because now I can just, where are you? Hello drone. I can just step off and I can attach a line, and then you can just step back on, take your lines off, hard support on the joystick, and we just come away. And that was quite interesting. The engines moved away quite quickly then, and the bow thruster came in quite fast to make sure we're coming out nice and evenly. You're not sort of being led by the engines. But how easy is that? You know, this 1200 horsepower beast that's so potent out on the water, all this tech. I didn't even have the cameras on, but there are cameras in here as well. You've got the surround view system. It just takes all of the worry out of it. And that is such an important part of being able to run a boat like this on your own. It's definitely less smooth in and out of gear than it is with the 600s. Whether that's, and they are different, you know, different gear casings, but also you've got 3 of them. It is a bit clunkier. They are so slick in and out of gear, and you've got the noise of the bow thruster as well, so it doesn't feel quite as smooth. It's easy, but in terms of, you know, the refinement of the slow speed moving process, I think it is a bit slicker with the 600s. Anyway, we found one of the myriad beautiful islands here in the archipelago. We're stopping for lunch. We're also going to stop and shoot the tour, so I'll see you at the back. Right, before we go and check out the engines at the back, let's take a look at the design, because it's a really nice position here to be able to look at the styling of this boat. It's such a striking looking machine alongside here. Obviously the gold paint is one thing. It's nice to see something that's a bit of a different colour, but just look at that upright bow, concealed anchor as well. This boat hasn't actually got a forward anchor, it's got its anchor at the aft end, but if you do have a forward anchor, it conceals away into the locker, so it leaves this really clean finish. It's a muscular looking boat, isn't it? It looks really powerful. It's got a great stance. They've added things like these bulges down here. I'm not sure this vent is even doing anything. Well, I know it's not because it's filled in, so it's a bit of a cheat, but it looks great and it gives it this real bulldog stance, especially when you're looking at it from this side. And these, you'll note, are the Garmin cameras for the surround view. You've got one on the bow, one on each side, and then one facing aft as well. You've got fender slots, so these pop into the deck, but of course you've got railings too, so you can tie them off and move them around a bit more easy. You don't always have to rely on those fender slots, which is quite convenient. And we've mentioned the side boarding gates, but you've got these nice long platforms on either side, so if you do need to step on aft, it's very easy to do so. And you've got this step as well, so again, if it's a slightly higher quayside, you can step on down here, or you can step on up there, and this is where you find the stern anchor. So that's just tucked down there. Control for it here, very much the way they do things in these parts. They'll drop the anchor, move into an island, and then stop off the bow. That's why it's another important reason to have that clear bow and not have the anchor in the way. Now, the engines, these are resting, having been doing their thing out on the water. But even with the triple arrangement, you've still got plenty of space to move in front of them and around them. You have these long sponsons, and you've got a ladder that pops out as well, so you can get in and out of the water easily. But yeah, these are really impressive bits of kit and impressive at speed, but also, as you've seen, really easy to handle this boat at slow speed. Right, let's get on board and have a poke around. First things first, this seating module. It's got storage underneath, so this just pops up as so, and then you've got these side opening lockers on either side. And this has got the shore power cable in it, but you can get, you know, lines and things like that in there. All quite convenient that it's down here towards the back of the boat. Then you have this backrest section, that's on a ratchet, so that can drop down. If you want to create a sunpad, we'll explain how that works in a moment. But then if you want to sit, you just ratchet up into that position and someone can sit along there. You've got big bits of glass in the deck as well. They're letting light down into the cabin below. There is a cabin underneath my feet, hence why we have this big piece of glazing as well. That does compromise storage underneath the wet bar. So there's a grill and a sink and a prep area, but nowhere to store anything. But you do get the benefit when you're inside there, as we'll see in a moment. You have got cooling space though. You've got drawer fridges on both sides, bits of Frigo ones on either side here, and they've thought to include some cup holders that are big enough for phones and things in the cushions, which is quite nice. Now I mentioned this being able to be a sunpad. Well, that drops down, but so does the table.
push a button, either go down to the level of the rest of the cushions, you can fill them in and you can lie out here in the sun, but also you can erect a canopy if you want some shade over here. But this nice big light as well, if you're backing into a berth in the evening, having that on will make life a lot easier. Moving forward, it's a fully symmetrical walk around design. However, there are some big steps, and I noticed walking around today, even guys from XO tripped down the steps a couple of times because there are level changes, possibly where you wouldn't expect them. And I noticed from our tour of this boat in Dusseldorf, people said, how do you drain the water out of this sunken deck? Well, there are scuppers on either end, so if there's water in this area, it should shoot down into the bilge. And we come back to the side door. Now, as I said when I was manoeuvring it, how easy is that? That makes all the difference. Boat builders, take note. Side door, side gate. That is what makes handling a boat so easy. However, it would be nice if, like on the Nimbus 495, for example, they manage to get this door to slot away into here. When this is open, it does really pinch this side deck. But it's a minor complaint. I'd much rather have this door than not. Chunky as well. Heading forward, these lovely big pop-up cleats. We've got these all round, and you pick up this nice railing too. Good for the fenders, as I said, but also means you can brace yourself if you're moving up here when the boat's rolling around. Now, I should say this particular boat has got a Seakeeper ride for trim, but also a Seakeeper gyro for stabilisation at rest. And then right forward, the anchor locker. This is just storage on this boat. As I mentioned, this one hasn't got the forward anchor mechanism. If you did, it would spring out and go out like that, but this is just a really handy locker. All the fenders fit in there, cleaning gear, lines, perfect, just what you need. On a boat like this boat's got synthetic teak. You can have real teak if you prefer, and there's some slots here as well to provide shade for this. Another sunpad. This is obviously fixed. It's always here. Quite nice that you don't always have to drop the table down to create a sunpad. You've always got one up here, and this hatch lifts up to give access and ventilation down to the forward cabin. Pretty cool, huh? Let's head inside. Look, these doors are big and heavy. They're a little bit awkward to open from the inside because you haven't got this handle, but I tell you what, when they're open, the space is amazing. And they can be locked along their passage as well, so if you just want a little bit of air when you're out at sea, you can lock them here, which is really handy. But then walking in and out is very easy, and the headroom shoots up again once I'm inside. It's got a glass sunroof too, that opens up. You've also got hatches above the helm, so in terms of ventilation, it's an area that could get quite warm. They thought about that, and there were lots of different options. And the first thing you have to do when you stop is convert it from driving mode into lounging mode. So this entire unit is on a pair of tracks. It's a push button mechanism, so you move it back when you want to drive, forward when you want to use the galley, pushes right up to the helm and blocks the helm off completely, but it gives you this passageway through here, and also means you can use the galley because you've got a sink, a single burner hob and some storage, but also means you can open up the table to make it a little bit bigger. This is on a pedestal too, so it can drop down if you want to adjust the height. You know, it's not perfect, this arrangement. There are compromises in the fact that you've got to move it backwards and forwards depending on what area you want to use, but with the geometry they've got, they've done pretty well. And I like the fact that you've got this long bench. It's important when you're moving along quickly inside in a boat like this that people can sit facing forward. Facing sideways may not feel that great, so that's really nice. They built in an armrest as well, and this is also access to the aft cabin. And talking of cabin space, this is a Category B boat. You can carry up to 14 passengers, but it's got sleeping space for 4. 2 down there, 2 down there, and we're going to start with the forward cabin. Right, the forward cabin, down one of the steps, and here we are. See, headroom is just over 6 feet. If you're well over 6 foot tall, you are going to find it a little bit restricted in here, but what you have got is a really decent sized bed, and those whole windows, which I mentioned from the outside. It's really lovely to be down here and looking out over water level. You can't see so well from the top of the bed, but from down here when you're perched on the end, it's just nice that you're in touch with the water, and crucially you're getting natural light in here. There's another Garmin screen down here as well, so you have control of all the boat systems from down in this cabin without having to go up to the helm every time if you want to oversee things. There's sockets, air conditioning, heating controls all down here as well. There's storage on the port hand side. When you come down, there's more storage underneath here too. Sofa over on that side, so you don't have to perch on the end of the bed, you don't want to, and a reasonable sized bathroom as well. That's got decent standing headroom in it, toilet, shower, sink. You have good privacy on this boat. 2 cabins, 2 separate bathrooms. That's really nice. And I must say, this is most likely going to be used as a fast commuter, a Davo. I don't imagine people are going to be using it for weeks on end, but certainly as a couple, it's pretty comfortable down here. You've also got that access hatch that I mentioned up on deck, so that springs up, and it's not really for access, it's more for ventilation, but it's nice that you can open it up and get a nice breeze running through here on a windy day. It's not too bad. Let's check out the aft cabin. Let's head to the aft wing, shall we? And access down to this cabin is via the aft bench. So we lift this up, that splits in half and then pins up here. And then you can lift up the footrest, slide this across, and you're in. What they're trying to do here is make the cabin spaces very even, so neither one really feels like the owner's cabin. You could use either as the owner's cabin. And when they try to do that, A, with light, all this glass that we saw outside, that makes a big difference, and also headroom. I can come down here and stand up really comfortably. Obviously, that changes a bit when I drop down to the berth, because you have the cockpit overhead, but it's still not too bad. You can still sit up and read there, and they've even got glazing there in the transom. So with those lights in the deck that we saw earlier on, and also this big piece of glazing up here, it is lovely and bright down here. It does not feel like a coffin like it sometimes does on this style of boat. The berths, you know, they're 2 singles, but you can infill them to make a double if you prefer, and they're a reasonable size. There's storage either side of them. There's storage over there as well, and crucially, we have a totally separate bathroom. It's not huge, but it's fine, and it means that guests here don't have to go forward to use the bathroom in the night. One of the only real issues is that down there in that unit is the seakeeper. So if you're on anchor, if you're sleeping with that on, that's going to be a little bit noisy. But access is at least pretty good. And I have to say, it's a lot better down here than you think it's going to be when you first look at this boat. It's an impressive job. After we toured this at Dusseldorf, I said the proof of the pudding would be sea trialing it. And it has surpassed expectation, I have to say. You see this amount of power, you see the way it looks, and you think that boat is going to drive really well. And I'm pleased to report that it does. Granted, it was pretty calm today, but in terms of its cruising performance, its refinement, moving you places quickly and comfort, it is absolutely top drawer. There are compromises. The geometry of that interior, the wheelhouse, doesn't work brilliantly. It could do with more refrigeration, and the bathroom's a little bit compromised. But as a fast, good-looking, cool point-to-pointer, it's right there at the top of the class. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching that review of the XO44. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give it a like if you did. And if you'd like to watch my sea trial of one of its rivals, the Brothers Shadow Cross Cabin, I'll put that for you up there. And if you'd like to subscribe to YachtBuyer, you can do that up here. Thanks very much for watching. I'm Jack Haines. This is YachtBuyer.